All right, everybody, welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Yeah, it's great to be back.
We're here to wade through a whole bunch of info.
Oh, yeah, we got a huge stack of sources.
And we try and extract the most important bits.
The stuff that's surprising, too.
Yeah. Hopefully make you a little bit smarter at the end of it.
We hope so.
So today we're dealing with a pretty disturbing story.
Definitely a tough one.
This took place in Woodbury, Minnesota.
Right.
And the main thing we're looking at today is body camera footage.
Yeah, shared by a YouTube channel called Midwest Crime.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that channel before.
And the specific video is titled, Mom's Deadly Midnight Attack Shakes Minnesota.
And, well, that title's pretty accurate.
Really is.
So it happened early in the morning.
May 26th.
In this really quiet neighborhood.
Yeah, near Lake Fialco.
And all of a sudden, there's just 911 calls coming in.
Out of nowhere.
People are reporting this woman chasing young children.
Down the street.
And she had some kind of long, blunt object in her hand.
And people were saying they heard, like, thumps and cries.
Really scary stuff.
Absolutely.
So we're not here to sensationalize this awful tragedy.
Not at all.
We're really trying to understand what happened.
That's the goal.
Based on all the info we have.
Right, and try to figure out what led up to it.
Exactly. So let's jump right in.
Okay.
The first thing we hear is the initial call.
That first 911 call.
And then the first officer gets to the scene.
Body cam footage starts rolling.
And you hear a neighbor talking.
Right in the background.
Talking about this screaming kid running outside.
Early in the morning.
And then the officer gets there.
And it's just chaos.
Oh, yeah.
There's this woman covered in blood.
Later identified as Sadio Ibrahim Mohammed.
Can you imagine being that officer just arriving on scene?
That would be so shocking.
Absolutely.
So of course the officer wants to know.
Are there any other kids around?
Yeah. Could there be other kids in danger?
Right. Maybe inside a nearby apartment?
Tragically, it turns out there are.
2 more children.
A 5-year-old.
And an 18-month-old. And you can hear the urgency in the officer's voice.
You can tell he's trying to make sense of everything.
And in the background, they're still screaming.
Coming from the Lakeview Alco area.
Sounds like things are still going on.
And then things escalate.
Oh, yeah.
The mother Sadio shows up.
With another guy.
And the officer tries to stop her.
But it's obvious he needs backup.
Immediately.
It's just too much for one person to handle.
Way too much.
And then something crucial comes over the radio. Other officers have found a 5-year-old girl.
Lying in the street.
And there's blood.
A pool of blood around her head.
And this is where things get really tough to hear.
Yeah.
Because her injuries were awful.
The 5-year-old.
Skull fracture, brain bleed, broken ribs, lacerated liver.
And she died later at the hospital.
It's just heartbreaking.
Absolutely heartbreaking.
And to make things worse,
the 6-year-old brother was also hurt.
He had a huge contusion on his forehead.
And a badly bruised arm.
Really awful.
Sounds like a brutal attack.
But then there's this one detail that just doesn't make sense.
What's that?
They found an 18-month-old inside the apartment.
Okay.
And that child seemed physically unharmed. It's so strange.
Yeah, why would one child be okay when the others were so badly hurt?
Makes you wonder what exactly happened during the attack.
Yeah, there's just so many questions.
So now let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
Let's talk about the mother and how she was acting.
What was her demeanor like?
Well, the footage shows her covered in blood.
Dried blood and fresh blood.
The officer asks her name, and she can't even say it.
Wow.
So he reads her Miranda rights.
Making sure she knows her legal rights.
And at first she seems to understand.
Like she's willing to talk.
But then things change quickly.
What happened?
She can't remember what just happened.
Like she's totally detached from reality.
She doesn't even know if the kids are hers.
She can't remember what she was doing earlier.
It's really strange.
Very strange.
And then her behavior gets really unpredictable.
Like how?
She slips out of her handcuffs.
No way.
She tries to run away.
Wow.
And she says something about Allah being the only one who can kill her.
That's a chilling statement.
And it all points to something being seriously wrong.
Some kind of mental break.
And this is where it gets really important.
Okay.
Because Sadio actually says something about her mental health. She says she has bipolar disorder.
Bipolar disorder.
And she hadn't been taking her meds for a couple of months.
That's crucial information.
It could explain why she was acting so strangely.
It could explain a lot.
And then she tries to explain what was going through her head.
And what did she say?
She says she was having paranoid thoughts.
Okay.
And hallucinations.
Hallucinations.
She thought her kids were playing games on her.
Oh, no.
And get this, she even thought they were the devil.
The devil.
Or some kind of demon.
That's terrifying.
She was so confused.
Between right and wrong.
And she even says she felt aggressive.
It sounds like she was completely lost.
She kept saying she was confused.
Like she didn't know where she was.
Yeah, she even asked if she was dreaming.
Or if she was in the hospital.
It's just so sad.
Absolutely heartbreaking.
So while all this is going on,
The officer is checking on the 6-year-old boy.
and he notices more injuries.
Besides the contusion and the bruising.
Yeah, he sees scratches
Okay.
and what looks like a laugh mark on his head.
Like from being hit with something.
Yeah, it seems like that blunt object was definitely used.
That's awful.
And Sadia's behavior keeps changing.
Up and down.
Like we said, she went from not talking to seeming to understand her rights,
Right.
and then she tries to escape.
And then she asks for a Somali interpreter.
It must have been so hard for the officers.
Trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah, because she's so unpredictable.
And there's blood on her clothes.
So they decide to take her straight to jail
It's the safest option.
for everyone involved.
Definitely.
And even after she's arrested,
What happened?
she keeps making these emotional statements.
Can you give us some examples?
Well, she asks to go home.
Okay.
She wants to see her daughters and her brothers.
She calls them AB.
Yeah, and she says she loves her family and Islam,
Okay.
but then she also says she wants to obey the law.
But she's confused.
And she keeps mentioning her bipolar disorder.
It's all over the place.
Yeah, and then she keeps asking this one question:
What's that?
what did I do wrong?
Like she doesn't understand the gravity of the situation.
Exactly, it's really unsettling.
It is.
And she gives some personal info too.
Look what?
She says her father's name is Isim,
Oh.
and she mentions an address, Woodbury 7141.
So that's probably important for the investigation.
Yeah, definitely. So this whole thing ends up in court,
Of course.
and Sadio Ibrahim Muhammad, who was 35 at the time,
Okay.
she's found guilty,
Of what?
second-degree intentional murder,
Okay.
and second-degree assault.
So second-degree intentional murder.
That means it was intentional, but maybe not planned out in advance.
Gotcha.
And the prosecution wanted a long sentence.
How long?
Over 30 years in prison.
That makes sense given the seriousness of the crime.
Yeah, but the judge decided differently.
The judge in Washington County.
Right, Judge Douglas Meslow.
What did he decide?
He sentenced her to 40 years of probation.
40 years of probation instead of prison time.
Yeah, but there's a big condition.
What's that?
She has to stick to mental health treatment.
So she's not going to prison as long as she gets treatment?
Exactly.
That's a big decision.
It is.
And I guess it makes sense considering her bipolar disorder.
Yeah, the judge really focused on that.
So she's avoiding prison, but she has to get help.
Right.
Wow.
Oh, and there's one more thing.
What's that?
The judge also issued a no-contact order.
Domestic abuse, no contact order?
Right, so she can't talk to her surviving children.
That's to protect them.
Absolutely.
Makes sense.
So as you can see, this is a really complicated story.
It really is.
It's just so tragic.
It is.
This mother attacks her own children
And she blames it on her mental illness,
on the paranoia and hallucinations she was experiencing.
which she said were caused by her bipolar disorder.
Right.
This isn't just a simple crime story.
Not at all.
It's about the intersection of violence and mental illness.
And it shows how important mental health treatment is.
Yeah, if she had been getting treatment, maybe this wouldn't have happened.
It's just awful.
It is.
And the sentencing is really interesting, too.
40 years of probation instead of prison.
It makes you think about how we deal with these kinds of cases.
When someone with a severe mental illness commits a crime,
What's the best way to handle it?
a tough question.
It really is.
And it makes you think about all the challenges people with mental illness face.
Yeah, and how the justice system should respond.
It's a huge issue.
And it goes way beyond this one case.
What are we doing as a society to support people with mental illness?
To prevent these tragedies,
And how do we balance that with accountability?
there's a lot to think about.
There really is.
It's heavy stuff,
It is.
but it's important to talk about. So that's our deep dive for today.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.